So I, like Susan, am a recovering private equity investor and have come to angel investing with some biases, all of which needed to get thrown out very quickly. And I'm going to touch on some of the process of thinking about how you evaluate angel investing. And there's an awful lot of overlap with that, with the type of investing all of you have done before. So I'll try to gloss over the parts that overlap with things everybody already knows and touch on the 2 or 3 things that are a little bit unique to angel investing. Okay, I will try to do that. Is that better? Okay. So the first thing I'll say is remember the 4 Ps. The first of which is people. Now that's sort of something that's axiomatic with venture investing. You want to invest behind the good people. And I think it's even more important in the context of angel investing here, because often you're starting with something that's an idea, and you're reliant on the energy and enthusiasm of those people to carry the idea forward. They're small teams, and so your concentration bet on the talent is much higher than it is in a traditional deal. So do they have the entrepreneurial DNA? Have they done it before? You know, one of my favorite questions to ask, I was an investment banker early on in my career, and as investment bankers, you do a lot of interviewing for kids coming out of business school. And I asked every single candidate I interviewed during that time, are you an entrepreneur? 100% of them said yes. I never once got a no answer to that question. Right? And of course, only 10% of them or 5% of them really were entrepreneurs, but they all said, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. They thought that was the right answer, right? And so I think really the entrepreneurs stand out. They're the people who have the energy, and the enthusiasm to take an idea and really run with it. And to understand that they're going to have to do all the difficult day-to-day duties that are required in starting a company. They really need the high-level energy, enthusiasm. They need domain expertise. They need to understand what the competitive landscape looks like, where there are risks and problems, so they can evaluate the risks effectively. And they really need to have a demonstrated ability to manage people and to attract and retain talent. And in the serial entrepreneurs I've known in my life, they have one consistent trait that I've seen time and time again. They have this loyal stable of people who they've worked with, who they're recruiting and bring into companies. Every time they start a company, they've got this guy that they worked with before, this woman they worked with before, or that consultant they knew, and they bring them in, they attract them and retain them over time. And they have a high level of loyalty of their people, and they're able to bring them in and create strong, talented groups very quickly. So that's something you see time and again. And this is a point I'm going to come back to again later. Creativity and flexibility in character is critically important. And at some level, this conflicts a little bit with energy, enthusiasm, and focus, in the sense that you want somebody to be a little bit like the dog with the bone that just wants to bring the bone home and is focused on success for the company. On the other hand, in the angel deals I've done, almost never does the ultimate mission of the company turn out to be what it started, the way it was envisioned at the start. They go through twists and turns, and they go around corners and take 90-degree turns, and you need someone that's flexible enough to be able to recognize that their initial plan is not going to work, and they've got to revise it and go in a different direction. And that's a key element of success in this business and in growth equity investments. So the second P is product. And in product, I'll include the market and the market environment. And a lot of this is stuff you think about in doing other investments, so I'll just go through it quickly. What's the uniqueness of the product or service? What's the value proposition to buyers? Are the buyers really getting a benefit from this? Is this something that they need, want, or is it just an impulse purchase, a fad that could disappear? What are the barriers to entry? What are the size and growth characteristics of the market? Is it an existing market? Is it a new market that they're expecting to develop over time or trying to help develop, which is obviously a much higher level of difficulty? And I would say in that last regard, the build it and they will come mindset is a difficult one and dramatically increases risk. You know, obviously there are some of the great successes in angel and venture investing have come out of people creating from whole cloth new markets. But it's very difficult to do and requires a real visionary. The third P is price. I know David's going to talk a little bit about this later in his presentation. By price, I really mean deal terms. And there are a couple things I really want to emphasize here. that some of which were alluded to by Susan in her comments. There's several myths related to angel investing and general early stage company investing. One is which will be cash flow break even in 12 months or 15 months or 18 months. And the answer is they almost never will be because the projections are wrong. And Susan told you that earlier. I'm going to tell you that again. You want to keep hearing that because the projections are wrong, okay? We won't need any more money until we go public or until we sell to Google or you fill in the blank, right? And the third one is that it's been 9 months since we did our last round, so we're worth 50% more or 30% more, right? That's how we're justifying our valuation. And they confuse activity with progress, right? And so you want to think about that in the context of what the value proposition is in the investment. Activity is not progress. Progress is progress. So look for milestones and look for things that are going to change the outlook for the opportunity and create more value for investors. So what does all that mean about how you think about structuring deals? One is to make sure that the structure reflects the inevitability of future dilution. You heard Susan say many of their companies have been back for a third round, and probably some for a fourth round. You're going to get diluted. So you better make sure the valuation, the structure anticipates that and provides some room for that. You want to make sure that the funding is adequate to get the company to the key next milestone or two in their timeline. Because if they run out of money, it's going to be ugly. We've seen this drill before. I'll never forget, you all probably had the same lecture in business school. My first day of finance class in business school, the professor stood up at the front of the class and wrote on the board, DROOC. And he said, if you learn nothing else in your 2 years at business school, remember this. Don't run out of cash. I've never forgotten that speech. And you see it here. That's something you want to be careful with. Okay? And then the fourth P is people, right? Because it's absolutely critical. And the one thing about people in the context of angel investing that's important to recognize is that it's really hard. It's really hard to make a change, right? It was hard when I was a private equity investor to throw out a CEO and bring in a new one. And you know what? We always did it too late. We waited too long and we did it too late. And it's even harder when it's a growth equity or a venture investment. When it's a startup, it's darn near impossible, right? Because you only got 2 or 3 people and you're going to throw out the founder and bring in somebody new to start the business. That's hard to do. So you better make sure you got the right people at the start. So just a couple of things in wrapping up. One is Susan talked about using networks and getting help and relying on people who have areas of expertise, all of which can make decisions more effectively. And I think that's something that works very well. And we've seen it work in the HBS Angels network, and I think it works in Golden Seeds, and it's something to remember to try to do that. 2 is consider the type of risk being taken. And think about that in the context of the investment opportunity. Is it market risk? Is it product development risk? Is the risk binary or spectrum risk? Is it a biopharmaceutical company? It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And maybe it's worth $100 million, maybe it's worth 0. That's fine. The best investment I ever made was in a biopharmaceutical company. That one worked. Some of them don't, right? And so just evaluate that in the context of the risk you're taking, how you size your investment, and the portfolio approach that you've heard a lot about before.